Then we continue. Baruch Merachim ala Oretz. Blessed is he who has Rachmanis on the Oretz. Merachim, this refers to the 7 emotions. What's the center emotion? Rachmanis. You have the right arm, that represents kindness. You have the left arm, that represents strictness, right? By us, the right is liberal, the exact opposite. See, we read from right to left. This world, everything is left to right, the exact opposite. So the liberal is left and conservative is right. In reality, liberal is right, kindness. Conservative, tough and strict and stringent, that's left. The right hand, the left hand, but the torso, the center, which is all connected, the brain, the head, the center, the male organ, that's the heart, that's the center, that's Rachmanis. And that leads all the way to Aretz. Aretz is the end, that's Malchus, that's kingdom. So why is Rachmanis the center? Because the center is also called Tiferes. You have Chesed, kindness, Gevurah, strength, Tiferes. Beauty is when you have balance. If you have one solid color, it's not beauty. You can have red, you can have green, you can have yellow, but beauty is when you a blend of colors. That's beauty, when you have a balance. It's Rachmanis that has the balance, that balances out Chesed and Gevurah. Because Chesed and Gevurah are opposites. Take, for example, you have the prosecutor and you have the advocate, the defendant, the lawyer. So each one sees things completely opposite. The lawyer says he didn't steal it. How could such a kind person, how could such a good person, how could you accuse him of this crime? Impossible. The prosecutor says no, he committed a crime. And they're opposites. So the advocate says he didn't commit a crime. Not only he didn't commit a crime, you have to pay him because you slandered his name. You took an innocent person, a righteous person, a kind, a decent person, and you went and accused him of a crime. You just destroyed his reputation. So you have not only isn't he going to pay for he never stole it, you have to pay him for the damage that you've done to his reputation. And the prosecutor says, no, what do you mean? He stole. He has to pay for his crime. If he proves it, the lawyer has nothing to say. But then when Rachmanis kicks in, Rachmanis says, true, he stole. But if you're going to imprison him, you're going to make him pay for his crime, you're not just punishing him, you're punishing his whole family. You're ruining his whole family. You destroyed his whole family. So what's the point? Let's say he did a crime. You're going to ruin his whole family? No, we have to rehabilitate him. You have to have Rachmanis. So let's help him out. Let's put him in a program. Let's give him money. He can rebuild his life, be productive. But you're going to punish him. You punished him. You ruin. Not only he's a ganef, he's a thief. Now you're going to cause his children to become criminals because there's no father around. So you destroy the whole family. Now you've created a dozen new criminals. What have you done? What are you doing? For this, the prosecutor is silenced. The prosecutor says, no, you have a point. I can't argue with you. You're saying he's guilty. He is guilty. But you have to have Rahman. There's a whole picture here. Don't just look at this isolated case that he stole. There's a bigger picture. He's a family man. There's a family involved. There's implications. There's consequences. What are you doing? You're just going to punish him and you feel good and you walk away? You destroyed a person. You destroyed his whole family. You created a dozen new criminals. What have you done? You're ruining society. You didn't help. So there's no argument there. But even more so, not only is the prosecutor silenced, but the prosecutor now becomes engaged to help because, so we decided, Rachmanis says, we have to help out this criminal. We have to help him out. Let's give him money. Let's help him establish a job. Let him make amends. God forbid he shouldn't destroy his family and he can improve, learn from his mistakes and improve. So kindness says, just give him money, help him. But the problem is, you're going to give him money. Who says he's going to use that money? All these programs that you're using to help him, he's going to use his money to continue his crimes. So you need to combine the aspect of Gevurah, the aspect of the prosecutor who's strict, who agrees that we should help him out. But under his supervision, we need that aspect of toughness. Yes, we're going to help you, but we're going to make sure that you're not squandering this opportunity. We're giving you an opportunity. We have Rahmanis, we have mercy in you, but we're not going to allow you to squander this mercy to exacerbate the problem. No, we're going to make sure to channel this help and this mercy that we're giving you, to channel that it should be productive. So the prosecutor becomes fully engaged. The advocate becomes fully engaged, the lawyer, his kindness, his arguments for kindness. Let's not ruin the family, let's help him. And the prosecutor says, well, we have to make sure that, I agree with you, we have to help him, but we have to make sure that it's done properly and there's no monkey business and it's real and it's really helping him. So we have to guard and we have to protect and we have to keep an eye and we have to supervise and we have to make sure. So he's fully engaged. So Rahmanis has the ability to take two opposite colors, kindness, the lawyer and the prosecutor are clashing or are like 180 degrees apart, like conservative and liberals today want to kill each other, completely live in two different universes, see reality from a whole different perspective. And the Rahmanis has the ability to bring them together, to reconcile the two. And that's why, what's the name of Hashem for the Sphira, for the attribute of Tiferes? Kel is kindness. Elokim is Gevura. Hashem's essential name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which really has no description and definition. Hoiva, Hashem is. Past, present, future, Hashem is. Hashem's essence. That's the name for Rahmanis. Because Rahmanis comes from a place which is undefined. Chesed is very defined. It sees things in a very defined way. Everything is kindness. Tilts towards kindness. Gevura sees this world in a very defined way. Everything is Gevura. Everything is intense. Everything is strict. Everything is... Tiferes is undefined. Because it's undefined, it goes deeper. And it looks into the reality. It goes into the heart and it goes into the person. It looks at the whole reality. That comes from Hashem's name himself. Hashem is undefined. That's why he says in Tanya, how is it possible? You have one color, you don't have beauty. You have another color, you don't have beauty. And you blend these two colors together, now all of a sudden you have beauty. You can't give what you don't have. Each color on its own has nothing. And all of a sudden you put the two together and all of a sudden you have something beautiful that's priceless, that people pay $100 million for a beautiful piece of art, for beauty. Because beauty is an expression of something undefined. The fact that you can blend, take two opposites, and you can get them to work together, to merge. Chesed and Gevura are now working hand in hand. The same reality, they were completely worlds apart, fighting each other, clashing with each other, fire and water. All of a sudden comes in Rahmanis and brings the two together and blends, and it's not Chesed, it's not Gevura, it's something much deeper, it's something undefined, it's tapping into something deeper. Rahmanis is, look at the person, look at the whole person, don't just look at his actions, what he did. Beneath all of that is a real person. Have Rahmanis on the person. And therefore you have to take into account his humanity, and Rahmanis go a little deeper than the surface. And there everyone reconciles, everyone agrees. Because you went deeper than the Chesed, deeper than the Gevura. It's not limited to Chesed, it's not limited to Gevura. It's an expression of something undefined of Hashem's name. So that's what we say, Baruch Merachim. So that's the essential quality, the essential midah that affects, that's the center of all the emotions, that's Rahmanis, Merachim. And we say, Baruch Merachim ala Haaretz, that Hashem draws down the 7 emotional attributes, ala Haaretz, till the level, the attribute of royalty, of Malchus. Now, why does Malchus need Rahmanis? So, the attribute of Malchus, we find, on one hand, Malchus is associated with Gevura, with strength. A king is remote, by definition. King has to be remote from his people, elevated, above, transcendent. He's in his palace, you have to treat him with respect, with awe. King is above, head and shoulders above everyone else. That's the foundation of a king. You crown him, he's a beyond, he's above you. He's a king. He's elevated. He's sitting on the throne. He's elevated from all of his citizens. That's the foundation of a kingdom. Unlike the other attributes. All the other attributes is really ultimately an expression of closeness. Not only love and kindness comes because you feel close to a person and you love them and you're attracted to them and you want to do good with them, But even when you hate someone, you're pushing someone away, it's also an expression of closeness. Because you only hate someone who's close to you. A stranger, I couldn't kill less. I'm not going to punish a stranger. I have no relationship to him. You're upset at someone who's close to you, so you're angry at them and you're repulsed, you're pushing them away. All the emotions really are an expression of closeness. By definition, royalty is distance. There's a distance, there's a huge distance, a gap between the king and his subjects. But on the other hand, once the king is king, the daily life of a king is, his primary function is to run this kingdom, to make sure the people have what they need and to take care of all their needs and to make sure that his kingdom is productive and the citizens are productive and he looks out for the welfare and the well-being of all of his citizens. So it's really an act of kindness. A king runs his kingdom with kindness. He doesn't beat them up. He's not a dictator. He's not a Hitler or a Stalin. He's a king, a benevolent king, a kind king. So yes, they have to treat him with awe and they have to treat him with respect. And he's sitting on the throne and he's in the palace and he's above them and he's head and shoulders above them, on top of them and above them. That's the foundation. That is the foundation of that relationship. But the king actively leads his kingdom with kindness. And the foundation of a kingdom is law and order. The king says, and you have to listen to the king, otherwise you rebel against the king, off with your head. So it's the king that instills in the kingdom, there's structure, there's law, there's order, there's a structure. The king's law is law, and you don't dare violate the king, you're in awe of the king, you're afraid of the king. But then you also find that a king also has to have rachmanis. What if a person acted so egregiously against the king, so egregious that, he can't just forgive and forget. Kindness is not enough to overcome. If a person acted so terribly against the king, or if the king is so remote and so exalted from his people, then whatever they do for him means nothing to him. It becomes insignificant to him. If the king is too remote from his people, he's so great and he's so beyond his citizens, his subjects, whatever they do for him doesn't mean anything, has no value to him. Or whatever they do, they can be so dedicated and devoted, it's an insult to the king. Because commensurate to the greatness of the king, that's how you show your loyalty to the king. You know what a great king you have. So your service for the king and your loyalty to the king is considered the rebellion of the king. That's why a Jew does tshuva in the 10 days of tshuva. Okay, we have to do tshuva because we sinned, we rebelled, we went against Hashem's will. But how about a tzaddik, complete tzaddik? Why is he doing tshuva? All he did was serve Hashem, express his loyalty to Hashem day in, day out, 24/7, doing Hashem's will. That's his whole life. He doesn't know of anything else. Why is he doing tshuva? Because on the 10 days of tshuva, when Hashem is king, when the attribute of kingdom is it's in its full glory, Hashem is sitting on his throne. Hashem is so remote, is so exalted, is so great, that even the most loyal servant, that service suddenly is considered a sin. Like it says, even the angels, Hashem punishes the angels. The angels are egoless. Their whole being is worshipping Hashem and serving Hashem and praising Hashem. But when Hashem is so exalted, even the pure service of the angels is considered an insult. So therefore, kindness is not enough. You need rachmanis. Rachmanis, mercy, compassion. It works precisely, the greater the distance, the more the rachmanis. Because Hashem is so exalted, because Hashem is so remote, because Hashem is so great, we're so far and distant from Hashem, that's why Hashem has rachmanis. And therefore, He'll forgive us. And that's why when Hashem wanted to wipe out the Jewish people with the sin of a golden calf, and they sinned so egregiously, and Hashem was ready to wipe them out, and kindness had nothing to say, what did Moshe appeal to? He appealed to Hashem's rachmanis, the 13 attributes of mercy. Rachmanis. Hashem is so great, and we're so insignificant. You have to have rachmanis. You have to forgive even the most egregious sin. And because of rachmanis, even the smallest thing that we do becomes significant. When Hashem has rachmanis, because we're so far from Him, we're so distant, we're so meaningless, insignificant in comparison to Hashem, even the smallest thing Hashem finds great, and Hashem rewards us for it, and is happy and is excited. That's why the kingdom needs Rachmanis. So we say, Baruch Merachim ala Oretz. The attribute of royalty should have the Rachmanis, the attribute of Rachmanis. In order to run this world, Hashem draws down the attribute of Rachmanis in Oretz, in kingdom, in the attribute of kingdom. Now, he's going over the whole Seder Shtalshlus, the whole formation, creation, from the beginning, where it all started. So we had Baruch Hu, and that's referring to Keser, Hashem's crown, subconscious that we discussed last week. Then we had Baruch Ha'isa, Baruch Ha'isa Makayim, that's wisdom. Baruch Ha'isa Bereshis is Bina, understanding. Then he goes to the 7 emotional attributes, Al Ha'aretz, the Malchus. What happened to Das? This Chachma Bina Das, what happened to Das? The attribute of Das, which is very key. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So in the Kabbalah, we have a rule, there's 10 spheres. So whenever he counts the first one, the Keser, of Keser, then he doesn't count Das. When he starts with Chachma, when he starts with wisdom, and he doesn't count Keser, then you count Das. Why? Because the 10 Sfirot, you have the external part of the Sphira, which we call the vessels, the expression of the Sphira, of the 10 divine attributes. And then you have the internal part of the Sphira. So whenever you count the external part of the Sphira, you start with Arich from Keser, and then Das is not accounted. Whenever you count the internal part of the Sphira, then you count Das. Because Das is unique. Das is different than all the other spheres. Das is all about internal. The whole point of Das is to internalize, to focus, to concentrate, to connect, to recognize, to integrate, to internalize. It's all about the internal. That's why a person who has Das, who can make decisions, there are people who are brilliant, but they see both sides of each argument, they can't draw conclusions, they can't make any decisions, they're indecisive as it gets, because everything is external. And on paper, I see you can argue this way, I can argue the other way. Das, when you get into the soul, you get into the marrow, you get into the essence of it, you get into the feel of it, then you can make a decision. The whole point of Das is internal. And what it means on the level of the Sfirot, talk about the godly Sfirot, and parallel to the Sfirot, we have the 10 attributes of the soul. Ability to think and to feel, etc. So the attributes of the soul are all external to the soul. In other words, the soul knows this world, interacts with this world through the 10 attributes. I think, I understand the world around me, I feel, I have a relationship to the world around me, I hate, I love, I'm attracted, I'm repulsed. So everything that's my interaction, my interface, my conscious interface with the world around me. So it's like external, it's secondary to me. But then you have the soul itself. The soul itself is the essence of the soul. Now, the soul is not a stone. It doesn't know. It doesn't feel. If the soul is able to interact with the world, and it knows the world around it, and it feels the world around it, surely the soul feels and knows. But the difference is that the soul, in its essence, knows itself because it is itself. It knows itself. It's aware of itself. It feels itself. Like when you wake up in the morning. You have to touch yourself to know that you're there. You have to hear yourself sing in the shower. You have to. You wake up. I feel myself. Who is that I that you feel? That self-awareness is not anything external. You're just aware of yourself. I am. And that self-awareness, you're more sure of that than anything in the world you can see, anything in the world you can hear, anything in the world you can taste or touch or smell. Because that's all external. It's through the vessels. I have tools with which I interact and I get to know the world around me and I relate to the world around me, the world that's outside of me. The soul itself, its essence, being in itself, is aware of itself, fully aware of itself, knows itself, is aware of itself. So that's an inner type of knowledge. It's not an external type of knowledge. That's an inner type of knowledge. I know myself because I am myself. Versus, even when I see, seeing is very powerful, but I'm seeing something outside of me. But knowing myself is much deeper. So when you say Chachma is like the idea of understanding Hashem. The supernal wisdom. It's knowing Hashem and being understanding Hashem. loving Hashem, Gevurah, being in awe of Hashem, seeing the beauty of Hashem, Tiferes. But it's all knowing Hashem through an interface, knowing Hashem through something external, through Chachma, Bina, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoyd, Yisod, Malchus, etc. Das, however, is internal. Das is knowing from the inside. It's knowing that it becomes you. It becomes part of you. Integrated, internal. It's not an external knowledge, knowing. Knowledge is like biblical knowledge, like Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. It's you. It becomes one with you. It's an internal. It's rooted with the inner part of Keser. Keser has the Arich, which is the subconscious, which is the beginning of consciousness, the root of consciousness. And there it's a whole different level, but it's still the root of consciousness. Then you have Atik, which is unknown, which is like Hashem. It's Hashem's knowledge, like Hashem knows himself. And the whole point of Das is to bring that inner knowledge into all the other Sfirot. That even I should see Hashem, and I should understand Hashem, but I should see Hashem and understand Hashem like Hashem knows himself. It's not something external. I see something, like I have a tool with which I interact and I see something outside of me. But it should become me. I should see it as if like I see myself. I should understand it like I understand myself. That's the function of Das. That's the point of Das. Das is rooted in the internal, in the essence, in Hashem. And it brings that level of awareness, that level of connection, that internal connection into all of the Sfirot. So instead of being external, suddenly it becomes very internalized and very integrated and deep and connected and centered. And that's what it means. Whenever you count Keser, what are you counting? You're counting the external part of Keser, the Arich, the subconscious, the root of this consciousness. So then you're counting Chachma, you're counting the vessel of Chachma, the external part of Chachma. Bina, the external part of Chachma, of Bina. There's no room for Das. Das is all about the internal. So you don't count Das. Then you count Chesed and Gevurah and Tiferes and Netzach, Hoyd, Yisod and Malchus. And that's why in the Baruch Sheamar, we started with Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu is the subconscious. Who? I know it, but I don't know what it is. I just know it. So I know from the consciousness, I know the subconscious, but I don't know what it is. So you're talking about the external. So we're talking about the external level of Chachma. We're talking about the external level of Bina. So he goes straight to the emotions. He externally skips Mitzdas. He goes straight to the emotions. And he goes to and all the way to Malchus, the attribute of royalty. But whenever you don't count Keser, meaning you start with the inner, with the Atik, the inner, the Hashem, the way Hashem knows himself, and then you count Das, because Das, then I'm counting the inner part of Chachma, the inner part of Bina, the way it's influenced by Das. Das influences all of the other Sfirot, because Das is rooted in the inner, it's rooted in the core and the essence of Hashem. To know Hashem the way Hashem knows himself from the inside out. And therefore it instills that sense into every part. And in simple words, you can have a person who knows Hashem, he knows Hashem, he loves Hashem, but it's not your essence. It's external to you. You know Hashem through your tools. I know Hashem because I have a mind. My mind tells me that Hashem is great, that Hashem is real. I love Hashem because my heart tells me that I should love Hashem. But it's like my soul knows something outside of me through these conscious tools that I have. So it's not really me. It's not my core. It's not my essence. Das, however, is when your Yiddishkeit becomes your core, becomes your essence. This is me. It's not anything external. It becomes fully internalized, fully integrated, fully centered and focused and connected. That's the level of Das. But here he's talking about how Hashem created the world. Here he's focusing on the external part, the external Seder Shtalshlus. How Hashem creates these faculties and these divine attributes, where there's Hashem, so to speak, knows the world through his Chachma, through his Bina, through his Das. And we interact with the world around us, and we even know Hashem through Chachma, Bina, Das, through Chachma, Bina, and Chesed, and Gevurah, Tiferes. But it's all the world, it's all external. Okay, and then he says, Baruch Merachim ala Briyas, and then Hashem has Rachmanas on the Briyas, on these created beings. So here we're going the next step. He's referring to all the souls and all the angels that Hashem created. Hashem created all the worlds and all the creatures of the world, upper and lower and higher levels of consciousness and lower levels. Why do you need Rahmanis? Because Hashem is so great and we're so insignificant. So why would Hashem be kind to us? We're so distant from Him. But that's precisely the attribute of Rahmanis. The attribute of Rahmanis is the greater the distance, the more loftier someone is, the greater the Rahmanis. The king has the most Rahmanis. The one who's loftier, the distance between the king and everyone else is so great, therefore he has Rahmanis. And he's equal Rahmanis and his ministers, because to him the ministers and the simple peasants are all the same to him. They're so far away from him. It's not like the minister is any closer to him. The minister is so far. He has Rahmanis on the minister and he has Rahmanis on the simple citizen equally. That's the nature of Rahmanis. It reaches from the top all the way to the bottom, the highest to the lowest. To be continued.